Hello everybody and welcome back to the Horror Movie Syllabus. My name is Professor Victor and I'll be your host as we go through all the essential, noteworthy, interesting, and notorious modern horror films. If you're new to the channel, I recommend you check out our introduction video. There's a link to it in the description below, and it's going to give you a pretty good sense of what we do here at the Horror Movie Syllabus. Basically, we look at a particular subgenre of horror and then we pick 3 movies from that subgenre to explore. But this is our Doctorate Level series. This is where we revisit a subgenre that we've already talked about. We've already done a video on it. We've already looked at 3 movies. Now we're picking a 4th Doctorate Level movie to explore. Something a little bit more maybe niche, or maybe a little bit more myopic, or a little bit newer, because it's been a few years since we talked about it, so maybe something new has come out that fits the bill. And we're just kind of getting an opportunity to re-explore the subgenre that we talked about previously. And in this case, the subgenre we talked about previously is the neo-monster subgenre. And in an original video, we kind of explained what we meant by a neo-monster, which is basically just a modern version of creatures, not like modern slashers as opposed to like the universal monsters, but just modern monsters that are just a little more new in an idea or concept, and usually have unique designs, better special effects, things like that. Newer monsters, basically, not classic old monsters like the werewolf and stuff like that, but just newer concepts, newer ideas, newer designs. And I think that the movies that we picked illustrated what we meant by neo monsters pretty well. So why don't we go ahead and just recap those movies right now. The first neo-monster horror movie we looked at was C.H.U.D. And C.H.U.D, or Cannibalistic Humanoid Underground Dwellers, is a schlocky B-movie creature feature, but it's played pretty straight. They are trying to give you and deliver you an actually genuine horror movie, scary movie, but it winds up being kind of dated and cheesy and fun, partly because, again, it being dated, and partly because the movie is trying to do stuff that it can't do with the cheesy premise. But it's beloved by many horror fans, including myself. And it's interesting because the movie's focusing a lot more on like the investigation aspect of the movie, and not as much on the chuds, which is what you want it to focus on. But it makes up for it at the end. The end of the movie gives you that action you're looking for, gives you the gory stuff you're looking for, gives you that creature feature action that you're looking for. It just takes a little while to get there, but I think that it's enough to make it a worthwhile effort, to make it give you the goods you're looking for, and is why people still talk about it and people still have affection for it to this day, and that's why we had to explore it on the video. And the next movie that we talked about was Pumpkinhead. And Pumpkinhead is another creature feature movie, but this one is directed by Stan Winston, who is known for his great special effects and makeup work, and he designed this creature, and it is fantastic. It's a great design. And the effects in this movie hold up rather well because they're very, they're practical, and they're very, very effective, very, very good. The Stan Winston connection to this movie is what makes Pumpkinhead endure as such a popular movie and a popular creature. And the fact that it has Lance Henriksen in there doing really good work. Lance Henriksen's great. Everybody loves Lance. But let's be honest, sometimes he can phone it in a little bit, and he doesn't here. He's giving, in my opinion, some of his best work here, like right up there with Aliens, frankly, in terms of the quality of the performance he's giving here. Combine that with that Stan Winston effects, and you've got a winner of a movie. Enough so that it spawned a whole franchise of movies, several sequels. The sequels are they're okay, I guess. They're perfectly fine to watch, but they don't ever really hold up to the original, which holds up remarkably well, considering the movie's decades old at this point. The effects work holds up really well. The story holds up really well. It's a really good movie that I think still manages to have an impact to this day, and it was definitely one that I was going to have to talk about on the syllabus. And the last movie that we examined on the video was A Quiet Place. And A Quiet Place was more modern than the other movies we had talked about, and it really owes a big debt of gratitude to the xenomorph from Alien in terms of design, and yet it still manages to be its own unique design by having these monsters be attracted to sound. The idea of the monsters being sound-oriented and sound-fixated was a fresh idea that allowed for some really tense storytelling and really good sound design. The setting of this movie and the sound design of this post-apocalyptic world, and having to be quiet in there so you don't attract the monsters, really cool idea, felt very fresh, and it made for a really neat neo-monster. We also talked about the great cast led by John Krasinski and Emily Blunt. Krasinski also directed it, and especially Millicent Simmons, the deaf actress who plays a deaf woman in the movie, and how much she lends to this movie's verisimilitude and making the tension work, making the story work. The caster is a big part of why this movie is so successful, but also the really interesting, cool monsters. It's another one that's spawned a franchise that is actually pretty good so far. It's still going strong, but it's really the original movie that felt so fresh and original, and it was definitely worth checking out. Definitely worth being on the syllabus. So that's going to do it for our recap of the previous video. Now let's get into the doctorate level selection. Our doctorate level selection for the neo-monster subgenre is Cuckoo. Cuckoo came out in 2024 and was written and directed by Tillman Singer, who did a movie called Loose, which I have not seen, but I've heard really, really good things about, and it's been on my list of something to try to check out, and I just haven't gotten to it. But if it's anything like this movie in terms of quality and uniqueness, I should probably move it up to the front of the list, because this movie is a wild trip. It's a really well-made movie with a really interesting new monster to check out. And of course, we just have to dig into it because it's something that needs to be talked about. First, if you haven't seen it before, the movie is about a young girl who's now living with her dad and his new wife and her new stepsister, and they're being moved to the German Alps for work reasons, and she's none too happy about it. She feels very isolated and alone, and she's not getting along with her family, and she gets a job there from the mysterious owner of this new resort that her dad's doing work for, and she's starting to come across weird, strange things happening with people, weird, strange things happening at night, strange behavior by people, and creepy, creepy creatures that she can't figure out what the hell they are, and neither can we. And I'm going to go ahead and stop there before we get into the hijinks so as to not spoil any of them for you. And this movie, honestly, it's a little hard to spoil it in terms of explaining it because it's a very strange movie to its benefit. This movie's got a lot going on that works very well for me, but I'll admit, on first viewing, I struggled with this movie a little bit. I wasn't sure how I felt about it when I first saw it because I didn't know what to expect. It had a really great trailer that was really enticing. It looked really cool. It had some fun stuff, but it was like, what is this movie going to be about? And then when I saw it, I'm like, what the hell is this movie about? And then on a repeat viewing, I really had a great appreciation for it. I really wound up liking it quite a bit. In fact, I wound up talking about this movie as one of my top 10 of 2024. It really hit for me. 2024 was a stacked year for horror, and this made the list. It really worked for me. Now, part of what worked for me really well is the cast, and in particular, Hunter Schafer, who carries this movie. She's the main girl, and she is essential to making this movie work. Her combination of snark and attitude, but also an underlying sense of vulnerability is great. She nails this role. And I'm not really super familiar with her. I know she's a model. I know she's on the show Euphoria, which I don't watch. I've never seen it before. So this was my first introduction to Hunter Schafer. Can't wait to see what she does next because she is fantastic in this role. And then, of course, she's playing off of Dan Stevens, and everybody loves Dan Stevens, right? Like, he is becoming a horror scream queen in his own right. He is super good all the time, and he's wonderful here because he is just this mustache twirly, over-the-top villain who's so obviously sus and so obviously just doing up to something no good, and he's just relishing in it and just smarmy, and it's a wonderfully over-the-top performance, but not too over-the-top that the movie slides off into camp. But this movie's writing a camp line the entire time, and that's one of the things I really like about this. It's got this kind of wacky, borderline campy premise, but it's taking it seriously, which just kind of makes it feel even more wacky, right? They're playing it for the most part straight. They're not trying to yuck it up and play it for laughs. And it allows it to be kind of ridiculous and weird, but still also strangely very creepy. Part of this is a really beautiful, wonderful location. The German Alps that they're setting it in and the location shooting they've done here is wonderful. It's a really gorgeous place. And the way it's shot is this really wonderfully atmospheric, stylish, dreamlike way of dealing with it, which dovetails really nicely into the very bizarre creature that we're being presented with. And I don't want to spoil things too much about it. It's enough to know that there's a creature in the movie and why we're talking about it in Neo Monsters. What that creature is, how it works, what its whole like modus operandi is something we're not going to spoil, but it's great. It's so weird. and it's creepy and unsettling and disturbing. And it's just like, you're like, who the hell thought of this and why? And it's just a really fresh monster. It's a fresh Neo monster. It's something new, something that I certainly hadn't seen before. And I really was down for it. I was really into what they were giving me on this because it's hard to find fresh ideas, fresh monsters, something that hasn't really been done before. Even when you do a variation on something that's been done before, it's still something that's been done before. This is something that, I'll be honest, man, I had never seen anything like this. And the visuals accompanying it to show how the creature looks and the disguises it takes and things like that, it's wild. It's wild. You've got this kind of mystery aspect of the movie of trying to figure out what's going on. And then when you know what's going on, you're just blown away by just how utterly bizarre and strange it is. And yet Hunter Schafer's keeping all of this grounded with her character. It's a very strong lead character with her attitude and her strength of character herself. Like the things that she's doing, the way she's taking charge, and the way that she's trying to deal with the situation she's been dropped into grounds the movie so that these more fantastical elements, you roll with them, right? You're willing to give the movie its premise, its one weird aspect to it, because the rest of the movie's feeling kind of rooted. And what it lends itself to, or what it kind of winds up making when you mix this together, is this borderline campy, borderline silly movie that's tone is just riding the edge. It could wind up being stupid, or it could wind up being melodramatic, but it winds up just being just kind of this fun, fresh, energetic idea that I loved. And critics liked it too. Like, it had really good critical acclaim, but the audiences, not so much. The audience reaction to this was very mixed, and I get it, because it's not going to be for everybody. It's a strange movie. I think it might just be too weird for some people, frankly. As a result, the movie wasn't a big hit, and it's unfortunate, because this movie is a risk. Tillman Stinger made a movie that's a risk of a movie, went there and did something strange with it, and said, hey, audience, keep up. And some of us did, and some of us weren't feeling it. And hey, if it's not your bag, that's okay. No judgment here from that. But for me, it hit. Like, just trying to do something bizarre and weird. And again, it took me a second viewing to really appreciate what was going on, because the first time I was just like, I don't understand what I'm seeing here. What is this movie? So the second time, I'm just like, I loved the fact that I didn't know what I was seeing, and I was so put off by this movie. It's great. I really enjoy this one, and I'm guessing a lot of you saw it too, because amongst the horror community, it was having quite a bit of buzz. So let me know if you've seen this one. What did you think of it? Because I'm pretty high on it, but I know not everybody was. I'm open to hearing some different opinions on this. But if you haven't seen it, I'd say try checking it out, because this one, it's a trip, and it's a trip worth taking. So that's our doctorate level selection for the Neo Monster subgenre. But I do have an extra credit movie for you, because this one I wanted to talk about too. And unfortunately, I didn't get on that syllabus proper because Cuckoo it blew me away so much I had to talk about Cuckoo, but I still wanted to get this one in. Now, this one is The Monster. The Monster came out in 2016 and is written and directed by Brian Bertino, who you may know from his work on the movie The Strangers, which is a home invasion movie that I absolutely love, and is kind of getting a resurgence right now with some new sequels to it, or remakes, or whatever the hell you want to call it. The topic for another time, these Strangers sequels. But this one is something that feels like it went under the radar and needs to be talked about, so we're going to talk about it right now. First, if you haven't seen it before, the movie is about a mother and a daughter who don't have the best relationship, and mother is driving the daughter to go and spend time with her biological father, the couple who are estranged. And while they're on the way there, they get into a car accident, and their car gets stuck, and they are being stalked by some unseen monster out in the woods while they're waiting for help to get to them. And they might not have enough time to wait, and the help might not be able to help them, as this monster seems pretty determined to do something bad, and hijinks abound. We're going to go ahead and stop there so as to not spoil the movie, of course. But this movie, again, feels criminally underseen. Like, nobody seems like they talk about this movie very much, and it's really great. And in part, it's really great because of the concept. Now, to be fair, it's a very simple premise, right? It's basically Cujo. It's, a mom and her kids stuck in a car being attacked by something from outside, and trying to get help. It's Cujo. But this simple premise winds up being very effective in no small part because of really good direction. Brian Bertino is really good at suspense. If you've seen The Strangers, you know what I'm talking about here. And he's doing it really well here too. He's got a really strong setting, basically side of the road on these secluded woods area, nothing for miles. And he's using darkness really, really well. The isolation aspect of it, the darkness aspect of it really lends to some really good tension. And then on top of it, inside the car, you've got a mother and a daughter who are kind of at odds, and that's putting it mildly. And this is the other part of the movie, the other aspect of the movie that I think makes it work really, really well. You've got Zoe Katan playing the mother. She's the thing I know her from is The Big Sick. She's excellent in that. And then you've got Ella Ballantine for the daughter. And I'm not really familiar with her at all. Ella Ballantine has done work, but I'm not familiar with any of her work. But they're both really great in this movie, especially Zoe Kazan, because what you've got is Zoe Kazan playing a movie where she is an unlikable character. She's the protagonist, her and the daughter, but the protagonists. But she's not very likable. She is a bad mom. There's no way around this. She is a bad mom, and you see in flashbacks just how bad a mom she is. These dramatic flashbacks, where you're seeing this relationship drama between the mother and the daughter, and they are really heartbreaking. They are really sad and frustrating, because she is horrible to her daughter. You've got this daughter who needs a mom, and she's an alcoholic, and she is, verbally abusive and really selfish and just spiteful and mean and angry. And Zoe Kazan plays it extremely well. Zoe Kazan, who I think is a very charming actress, she's very likable. She's giving a great performance here. Outstanding, because it's not what her persona is at all. She's really going someplace kind of dark and really unflattering. Like, it's not so much that she looks bad, so much as she's just an unlikable, a detestable person. And then you've got Ella Ballantine playing this really sweet girl that you're very much rooting for. So you're kind of hating Zoe Kazan, and yet you kind of need to be on her side because they're in it together, and she's one of your protagonists. And again, I tip my hat to Zoe Kazan on this, because she makes that character complex enough and interesting enough that you stick with her even though you kind of hate her through a large part of the movie. And then Ellen Ballantine, not quite as amazing as Zoe Kazan, but doing really solid work, really, really good work, delivering some really difficult things to deliver in terms of line readings, in terms of emotions, in a way that I think works perfectly well. And she makes the kid very likable, which again, when you have the mother being so despicable, having a counterpoint of a very likable child works really well, helps even things out a little bit. But it's a complex kid too, because she's wishing her mom was dead, she kind of hates her back, and you understand why in these flashbacks. You get it, you're on the kid's side for this, but it winds up becoming this really interesting coming of age drama of this little girl kind of coming into her own and kind of having to learn how to bridge this relationship with her mother, because they are both in trouble and they need help, and also kind of just learning how to be her own woman, if you will, in her own way, because of this monster threat that they've got going on. And the monster is cool. Like, I really like the design, and I like that they hide the design for most of the movie. They basically take a page out of the original Alien textbook in terms of not showing too much of the monster until it's time to really do the reveal. And then when they got the design, I think it's very cool. I liked it quite a bit. It's kind of like a cross between like Venom and like Grendel and like maybe something from like the Twilight Zone movie from the airplane. It's kind of like all that. It's really a cool, creepy design. And then again, Bertino using the darkness and the mystery of the woods and the kind of isolation to really ratchet up that creepy factor. Excellent stuff. And then, not for nothing, the way the premise is set up, again, it's a simple Cujo premise, which doesn't work as well in the modern day with technology, but they do a really nice job of dealing with that too. They do have a cell phone. They are able to call for help. When the help gets there, they accidentally get the cell phone into the tow truck, and then the tow truck driver, well, let's just say things don't quite go as planned, and they can't get their phone now. And they really do deal with a lot of this stuff in terms of like how remote they are and how long it's going to take for help to get there, and like why is it taking so long for the truck driver to hook up this truck? Well, because the axle's broken, and that causes some problems with this type of tow truck. I actually had to look that up just to see if that was true, because like, why is this taking so long? But all of it is on point. They found organic, real solutions to explain how they're stripping away all the hope and help from these two characters while they're stuck in this car. It's great. It's really wonderful. It's got some really shocking gore scenes that are kind of, sporadic and sparse. They don't overdo it with the gore. It's a kind of like a less is more attitude, but it works. This movie is underseen. It really should be seen by a lot more people. It doesn't get as much buzz as it should. It's got good critical buzz, and it's on streaming. It really got a very small theatrical release. I think A24 actually released it, but it was a small release, and then it's kind of making its bones on streaming. But it feels like it doesn't get talked about nearly enough, which is why I wanted to bring it up, because I feel like it needs to be talked about a lot more. I really liked this movie a lot when I saw it. I thought that it was a real big treat, and I had to figure out a way to put it on the syllabus. So when we did the doctoral level selection, this was going to be the doctoral selection. And then again, Cuckoo came out, and I was like, well, there goes that idea. But we're still going to have to talk about it because I want to promote this movie. I think this one is one you should definitely check out. Strong performances, strong directing, cool monster. Definitely what you're looking for. So if you haven't seen it, by all means, check it out and then come back and let me know what you think, because it is definitely worth your time, and I want more people to see it. And now what I want to do is give you a horror trivia pursuit card question to answer. This is that time of the video where I look at a card here live on camera and hopefully answer it correctly and not embarrass myself. And since we're talking about neo-monsters, we are absolutely doing the monster category on the card, of course. And here's our question. In 2017's It, what is the first name of the dancing clown? I suspect that most, if not all of you, know the answer to this question like I do. This one's a pretty easy one. It might have been harder if the 2017, remake of the 1990 miniseries had never happened, but it did happen, and actually they're specifically referencing the 2017 one. It would be a harder question because 1991 would be older and not be so familiar with it, but that 2017 movie was really popular. Like, a lot of people saw that. He kind of reinvigorated the It story and this character in particular into the modern vernacular or zeitgeist, right? People were talking about this character. Again, their toys making of this character, t-shirts, all that stuff. People were super into this again. So I feel like this is a question that is easier to answer now because of this movie than it would have been had you just stuck to the original, or even more the book, which I don't think as many people have read, but people know the movie. And it's a great movie. I really enjoyed the 2017 It a lot. We talked about it on the channel. It was on, I think, on our clowns video, which would make some sense. But it's great. And just like the book, just like the miniseries, the second part of this, where you're dealing more with the adults than the kids, it's not as good. We all know that. But that 2017 movie really knocked my socks off. I really liked it quite a bit. And I wasn't alone. It was super popular, made a ton of money. So again, I'm guessing most of you know the answer to this, so I'm not going to prattle on any longer. Lock in your answer. You know what it is, right? So lock it in. I'm going to make my answer. My answer, of course, is Pennywise the Dancing Clown. And the card says Pennywise. So yeah, Pennywise is super popular now. He's as well known as Jason and Freddy and Michael Myers' part. Maybe more so, honestly. That's, a neo-monster in its own right. So great question for this video. Speaking of this video, thank you very much for hanging out till the end. I really appreciate you guys watching. I appreciate you guys hanging out. I appreciate when you guys make suggestions for movies for me to watch in the comments. And I very much appreciate when you let me know what you think of my selections here. Let me know what you think of Cuckoo. Let me know what you think of the monster if you've seen it. If you haven't seen it, check it out. And until next time when we go to do something completely different, I'll just say, class dismissed.